Flying Joe. Know all there is to know, from masterpieces to deep fried tacos. And if the movie sucks, you might hear them say, there's no telling where the guys will take you. Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, cause we already warned you. Better watch out, it's gonna ruin the plot. Real spoilers. Real spoilers. Real spoilers.
Broadcasting from the lush but not lavish studios located in the basement of the O'Keefe Institute for Advanced Film Snarkitude, this is Real Spoilers, episode 698, ELVIS.
Are there two of them?
What's that?
Are there two of them?
Some people think so.
Oh.
Well, he was a twin.
That's true. That's
So-
true. Maybe he didn't die at birth.
So, yeah.
Maybe.
The conspiracy's gonna go all the way back.
Oh.
To,
Well, you saw
They-
Bubba Hotep, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
I
There's
love that
all
one.
sorts of conspiracies around Elvis, so, yeah.
Well, can we just do them all?
Yeah.
Rather than talk about this movie?
I think the world has enough conspiracies.
That's fair.
Remember when conspiracies were fun?
Yeah, and enjoyable.
Oh, aliens.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Elvis never died, or Tupac.
Right.
He just went home.
Paul McCartney was replaced by a
Right.
duplicate.
Yeah, right,
that's
right.
It's
Avril Lavigne isn't the same Avril Lavigne.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like nobody who believes that about Avril Lavigne ever, tried to overthrow the government.
Correct. Yeah,
So-
right.
So it's fun. It's fun when it's like that.
Yeah.
So I guess let's go around the table and everyone can introduce themselves.
This is Joe.
This is Kevin.
And this is Tom. Quick shameless plugs. Don't forget we're available on Apple Podcast, iHeart, TuneIn. Wherever you find a podcast, you can find us while you're there. Be sure and follow us so you never miss an episode. Maybe leave us a review. That's always helpful. You can also find us on Facebook, facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group, and maybe become a real-life member of the League of Show Sharers if you want to help the show out. It doesn't cost you a dime. Just click share, and people in your feed can see that we're out there. People who were kind enough to share an episode this week: Heather Sachs, Librarian Cynthia, Tammy Sherman Powers, David Rojas, Chris Falls, Gabriel Lugo, Chris Magic Man, Chris Sanders, Braid 1991, Joshua Drake, Dissect That Film, Manic Pixie Weirdo Podcast, Chris Williams, Brad Hyan. I have to come up with a new reason why he can't be listed.
Okay.
Because there was no way to exclude him.
I
So
see.
I have to come up with a new Brad Hyan rule.
We can
he
figure it out.
So he can be excluded.
Let's just block him.
That's so.
We want to share.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
We just don't want to give him credit.
That's fair.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's a good call.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out how to.
Okay, so we won't read it if he isn't on the episode.
Oh.
And we'll only read it if he is on the episode.
Ooh.
We're in Bizarro world
You
now,
flipped
baby.
the script.
He's gonna be showing up every
I
Sunday.
know. Yeah, he's like,
Holy-
hey, I'm
Read
here
that
for
name.
Yeah, I'm here for the Zoom.
He'll be camped out on my doorstep. Ronnie Castle, In Session Film, Ella's Not Well, Mike and Oscar, Colby Mack, Binge Movies, Spoiler Piece Theater, Feelin' Film, Invasion of the Remake, Chris Wilson, and Four's a Crowd.
Yes.
Oh wow, that is pretty good.
So
Yeah.
he threaded the needle.
He did.
He threaded
No
the needle.
characters were on that I heard.
Yeah. So anyway, you can also, if you want to help out even more than that with actual cold hard cash, you can do that at patreon.com/real spoilers, where for $5 a month you get all sorts of bonus content and we like you extra. So there's all that. Let's dig in.
Here. Okay.
So what's your history with Baz
None.
Luhrmann?
Oh, so I think I've told the story about how he hornswoggled.
They tricked you.
He hornswoggled me into Romeo and Juliet, and I was not happy about that.
I love iambic pentameter and,
Yeah, I was
and
like,
Shakespeare
"You
plays. Let me go see
son
this.
of a bitch.
Oh, now it's like, to me, I would think you going to see Romeo and Juliet, and then they start having guns and stuff. You'd be like, hell yeah!
Yeah,
Like,
but then they
wouldn't
start
that dress it up.
Yeah, but then they start talking.
But then they got to
Oh.
talk.
Yeah.
But you were still going to Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah,
which
because
means-
girls were going.
And there was an Everclear song in the soundtrack.
Yeah, Claire Danes was in
And
it.
Garbage had a
Yeah,
song.
come on.
I'm just trying to go through the steps of, you knew you were going to Romeo and Juliet.
but okay,
he
okay.
dressed it up in cool ways, but then you were like, damn you. It's like, but you still knew you were going to see the material.
I knew I was seeing. I mean, like, the story is whatever. It's fine.
But you didn't know how they talked.
No. I did not
you
realize.
didn't
Like,
realize
I
that.
thought it was just an updated version of Romeo with Claire Danes and Leonardo DiCaprio,
it.
right?
Like West Side Story.
Like West Side Story.
You know, not talking all weird in West Side Story.
And then they start talking, and I remember looking at I was on like a triple date. I remember looking at one of my buddies.
Oh,
and
with
being
different couple.
Well
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I misunderstood.
There was three couples.
Okay.
For
And
a
I remember
second,
looking-
we had a lot of.
Yeah,
we were like, "Wow,
That's all right. Yeah.
look at Joe."
as a freshman.
Yeah,
Yeah. I remember looking at one of my buddies and being like, "Mother, this is terrible."
Better be worth it.
Yeah, no, and it wasn't. Got to tell you, I don't think I even got past halfway to first base.
you're still in the on deck circle.
Yeah, I hit
The
circle. Circle is more appropriate. I hit a ground out to the pitcher.
But you know what? Just be happy they didn't sing in it.
Yeah,
I mean, it could have been a musical.
Could have been a
triple
musical.
threat.
Oh man,
negative
if they'd
triple
have
threat.
sang in that,
I'd have got
you know, there'd have been lutes and harpsichords. It would have been awful.
So I think that is my history with him, right? Like I know Gatsby, like I know that was kind of
Okay.
like the big one, right? Like that's the one that kind of like that's a bunch of Academy nominations, right?
I
I
think
wrong about-
that
I
was
feel like
kind of-
Moulin Rouge is the big
Oh,
one.
that makes
yeah,
sense.
I would
Okay,
say his
okay.
most notable, the one that's most beloved, would be Moulin Rouge. But Gatsby was more mainstream, I think.
Yeah.
Gatsby felt more like a big WB Studios
Sure.
picture.
Was that his last one? Is that the last one he's done, or is
That
there
is
something in between?
his previous one. Yeah.
So I think we've talked about that. We actually Dan was on the episode when we did Bohemian Rhapsody. Right.
Not
So-
Dan, Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, yes, totally.
The difference every time a new musical biopic comes out,
Yeah.
that movie looks worse and worse. I mean, it looks bad
it's
when
crazy.
we talk, but
It's you're totally right though. Like I think about that all the time and how he won an Academy Award for that.
and you see the other guys doing their
But then
stuff.
what's his name? Taron Egerton.
Oh
no,
my gosh,
is that his
yeah.
name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did sung the songs, fell into the role,
Looked like
didn't
felt
even
like
get
the guy.
nominated.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy.
And then you see what this guy, Austin Butler, does for Elvis, and you're like, how does Freddie Mercury looks like a joke performance? It
Yeah.
looks like a
Like an
skit
SNL
on,
skit.
on Funny or Die or
Yeah.
something. I mean, it's just not
but
good.
part of the problem though is Freddie Mercury is kind of a cartoon character.
But it didn't feel authentic the way he played it. Like I saw Rami Malek doing a Freddie Mercury impression,
Sure.
rather than someone that maybe fell into the wild life of Freddie Mercury.
I think that's what's missing, right? Like there is none of that is in the movie. You know what I mean? Like it's a
in Bohemian
it's-
Rhapsody.
yeah,
because
it's
they
a,
sanitized.
yeah, it's a
it.
sterilized version of his story, and I think
Sacha Baron Cohen won.
that's
think,
what I
would
wanted
have
to see.
been
Yeah,
amazing.
that would have been. But I think
and that was great casting too.
looking at where we are, I think the only one that to me I have had any enjoyment watching is Rocket Man. Like
Really?
I didn't like. I get it.
And that's a musical.
It is a musical.
It's more musical than this is musical.
That's
That's
true.
what I mean.
But like,
or
I
even
feel like
Bohemian
they're,
Rhapsody.
like there's dance numbers and it's
and the songs, it's not just. And then we wrote this song,
right. The songs are like integrated into the
Yeah.
story.
That was
but
a
I
great
also,
way to tell the
But
story.
I also
Yeah.
think they don't sanitize his story.
No.
In Rock,
Elton
he's an
John
asshole.
was involved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
he-
he
I mean,
let them do it.
But I think everything we've
I
seen
think
since
it's still
then,
sanitized.
probably to an extent.
But I think that, he lets some of the negative
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
in because he knows when people know it, and so they're going to be like, "Come on, dude." I also think
Freddie Mercury's the same way. We all know.
there's another issue there in that Elton John is about one guy,
Sure.
where Bohemian Rhapsody is theoretically about a
Right.
band,
Right.
but also the people that control that IP. They knew and worked and loved Freddie Mercury. It's a lot different to be like, yeah, I was kind of a. You can go ahead and show that.
Sure.
Between this guy that's been dead for 30 years was kind of a. You can go ahead and show that,
Yeah,
right? Like
that's fair.
So I mean, I get why.
Look what they did with was it Jobs with Ashton Kutcher?
Well, there was two.
There was two. There was the
Jobs
Aaron
and
Sorkin
then-
one, and then the Ashton
that was
Kutcher
the
one.
Michael Fassbender one.
So was Steve Jobs the Sorkin one then? Whichever. I thought that they did a really good.
Sorkin did the Fassbender one.
Oh, he did the Fastbender.
I
Yes.
think that's right.
Well,
yeah.
you
He
know
did
what?
because they were walking and talking the whole time.
That's true.
right.
But to their credit, and I really liked that one. I liked the Fastbender one. I actually like both,
I
but
never saw the Kutcher one, but
Yeah,
I
it was
I,
actually really good.
I
Like,
did like the Jobs one.
Kutcher did a really good
A
performance.
That's
lot
what
of people
Rogan-
don't know that Ashton Kutcher is like next level smart.
Yeah, oh yeah.
He's crazy smart.
He like invested like super early into Twitter.
But
and
that could just
all-
be a fluke, right? Like,
Sure.
I mean,
maybe.
Lance Armstrong invested in Uber. Like, he's not a genius.
Well, he's also
He just invested in Uber.
That's
and
true.
Ashton Kutcher has lots of business investments.
And
Like
he's
he's very
crazy
yeah.
smart.
I think isn't Mila Kunis also like next level genius?
She might be. That
No,
would
you're
not
thinking
surprise
next level hot.
Well, that's a given.
That
is a given. Mila Kunis.
Have you seen? Oh, is she gonna appear?
No, that's the
Say what?
the line from A Thousand Ways to Die in the West.
Okay, I just thought you
when
were
they're
summoning
saying when
her.
they're saying that something is hot, they were like Mila Kunis.
Oh man, Tom likes that movie. I
I like that movie.
I like the movie. I think that movie gets a bad rap.
I
thought the
need
movie
to
was
watch
funny.
it again. I watched it one time and I was so
They
disappointed.
gave
but
away the best part of that in the trailer.
They did.
Yeah.
Did you listen to the blank check about Oz?
Yes.
And did you go watch that interview?
No.
Oh my! You have to. There's an interview for Oz Great and Powerful where the BBC sends an intern to go interview Mila Kunis, and I don't know if they did it as a joke or they just didn't have anybody else, and they said, "Well, we still need this interview." But this guy is so down to earth, and he's not being gross about it or anything. But he's just kind of like hitting on her, like throwing game out there. Oh, you'd love my mates. We've got Jerry the
the boom mic guy or
whatever. He's just like he's got nicknames, and then we all go to the pub and you'll go to a match and you'll wear the colors. I'll get you a jersey. Like he's just like spin game. But Mila Kunis is so charming in this interview, and he's like, oh, I should probably talk about the movie, and she's like, no, this is the best interview I've done. She's like, here, real quick, let me run through. This is my character. This is what I do. I'm gonna give you all the stock answers that you want.
I'm happy. I'm happy to be doing the movie. It's it's an iconic part.
And then
let's keep
and
going.
then they
talking
just talk
yeah.
about the pub and going out and who are your mates, and he's like, they've got all the nicknames for him and everything. It's such a funny interview, and she handles it like such a pro. She seems like a real down to earth, like just cool person. So anyway, that was hilarious. But where were we before Mila Kunis?
I was just saying
Steve. Okay, real quick. So this is what Steve Jobs. Man, it's
Ashton
amazing
Kutcher,
how we
that's pretty
bounced
good.
from one
That's
thing to
pretty
another. Those movies showed how Steve Jobs was. I mean, he was responsible for amazing advancements in our technology because of his business. He didn't invent the stuff.
Social Network was the same way.
But he was the pitch man and all that. But like those movies showed that Steve Jobs was a jerk.
Yeah.
And both movies did not hold back. And so to their credit, though, you give a movie a lot more respect for telling the true story
That's what I'm
than
saying.
to sanitize it or sterilize it.
And I feel like this.
Like Buzz Lightyear.
That's exactly just like Buzz Lightyear. I feel like this
That's
is
what was
kind
wrong
of,
with the movie. They got my boy Tim Allen out of there.
But like that's what I feel about every musical biopic about these larger than life stars have become like we just want to tell the good stuff.
Because they want to sell the soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's all
But
about...
like Elvis, you don't need to sell an Elvis
yeah,
soundtrack.
but these movies are advertisements.
I don't know that
for-
it's about the soundtrack as much as just the overall. Right, because it's like, do you really sell that many CDs
No, that was my
anymore?
shorthand. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to start playing on the radio. You're going to start
Right.
selling
Well, look
greatest hits. You're gonna
at
start-
Kate Bush.
Yeah.
Like who's getting like millions in
That's what I'm-
royalties
yeah, so
for,
these, I mean,
for that song from Stranger Things.
Queen, the guys in Queen made like $1 billion or something. I read off of just that movie and the
Good for
music
them.
around it or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
it did crazy business. So, but if it would have came out, well, Freddie Mercury's a jerk. I'm not saying everyone would have stopped listening, but you'd have some people who go, "Oh, I don't know if I want to."
I don't know, man. Like I think
Some.
you can,
I'm just saying.
I think you can
you
tell
know.
that story and have him, the struggles and the fame and the
It could be a redemption arc.
yeah. You get
sure.
to the end and like he realized, it's. But I feel like this is the same way. Like
Yeah, I'm not like
I think
condoning what they did. Again, I think they should have went the other way because
they make Tom Hanks the bad guy, and it's like Elvis wasn't the best.
well, and we'll get into that too. But yeah, I think that's interesting.
but
because-
I think that there are people who in music whose story is super interesting, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just saw as I'm walking through Ronnie's, I can see the poster for "Wanna Dance with Somebody," and I was like, that's kind of an interesting, like that could be kind of interesting, the Whitney Houston story,
Yeah.
like especially how things ended there. And I think the one to me that I think if I'm a studio, I'm chomping at the bit is Prince. Like to me, the Prince story would be just bonkers, and I
Yeah.
don't know how that he's another one who I don't think folks would let them tell the real story.
yeah,
Because something tells me he's got some some crazy stories and not just playing basketball.
When
Right,
did they do Michael
against-
Jackson? When does he get
So
like a
I don't think you
real
can
Well,
do that.
modern-
he's got a Broadway play.
Yeah,
I don't. That to me, that's one I wouldn't touch.
but I just wonder when
No pun intended.
no intended.
Oh, okay.
someone is going to make that eventually.
Probably.
I think someone has to because he's just too iconic. His
But I'm assuming the family owns the rights, and I just don't think the family's going to let this watered down
how
version.
many are-
I guess
how
to
many-
use his music.
If
How
you want
many
his
of those
music,
Jacksons are left?
I mean,
So
a lot. There's
Janet, Latoya.
Jermaine, Tito.
Oh, and
I mean,
his
there's
ki-
a
and
bunch.
his kids,
Yeah.
right? Prince
Yeah.
and
Blanket.
But who-
that's what I thought it
Um,
was, but I wasn't
now,
sure.
doesn't Sony own the music though, or did they somehow get it back? Because if they don't own the rights,
It's bounced around. I forget who it ended up with.
then the family doesn't have say. Someone can write a biopic, and then if
They still own his likeness, though.
Yeah. Well, which
Can you-
likeness?
Yeah.
you can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
I
how do you
mean-
think Marilyn Monroe and all
But
those.
if you're making a biopic about someone, I mean, you've got to use their
No. Well, I mean, you got to use their likeness, right? Like what was is it Selma? Is that the one that's like about Martin Luther King? Or
Yeah,
is
but where they couldn't use any of his speeches.
that, right. Or they couldn't talk about other stuff.
Interesting. I just
Well, I think they chose to not talk
Yeah.
about it.
Oh, is that what it was? I thought they were like,
well,
if you're
it
gonna make
also
the
covered
story,
a very specific point in
That's
time.
true. That's
it wasn't a biopic about Martin Luther King. It was about
the
Selma. But they weren't allowed to. The Martin Luther King estate was like, well, if you want to use his speeches, you got to pay us.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense.
You know, the monument they built in Washington, they have a snippet of his speech. They had to pay for that.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty.
That's super.
Like it's like they're building a monument to him. I think you could comp him that one.
You get one.
Yeah,
Right.
But I mean, also it's like he did all this great work, and then how much crap do you have to go through? I mean, the government has money
Sure.
to pay him. I
But
mean,
still.
you know, I just like let us. I don't know. I mean, I get what you're saying, but also
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? The government spends more money on renovating toilets and stuff than they do on some stuff they should be doing.
Buying
Like,
a hammer
they
for
can
30
pay him
grand.
to use a snippet of his speech, like whatever.
But yeah, I think like if I'm gonna enjoy these, I don't want to see a sanitized version of their story. And I think if you're gonna make, Baz Luhrmann has a
I
very
don't think
specific.
this is sanitized though.
I feel like it is though. Like I feel like
they definitely minimize things.
Yeah.
Like you see him taking a pill like once,
I mean,
right?
yeah, and you see
And-
Dr. Nick
and then you
shooting
see
him up. And
yeah,
doing
but it's
whatever,
portrayed as like, well, he didn't want that.
His dad
he
said he could
only
do
did
it.
it because and or all the cheating,
right.
like they make it look like, that it just was right there at the end,
Right?
where
Yeah.
it
No.
was
No.
like,
Totally.
no,
It was the
No.
entire time.
it was the entire time. Like
Right.
the
Well-
story's always been he slept with all of his leading ladies but one. And that was so they all had plausible deniability.
But who was the one?
It was right, even though we all know it was Mary Tyler Moore.
Correct.
Yeah.
So because whenever he came back from the army, he did Viva Las Vegas with Anne Margaret,
Yeah.
and they had a year-long affair. But Priscilla was not 17 yet, so like he was. With
That's the other thing they don't mention at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Is that was
14.
underage? Yeah,
Yeah.
she was underage.
But
and
I don't
they
think
gloss over.
I don't
that
think
completely.
they hooked up though. He waited for her to be of age.
Okay, but that's still pretty creepy.
I'm not
Yeah.
condoning. I'm just saying like
This 14-year-old's hot, so I'll go bone Anne Margaret until she's 18.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think
What a-
the story
what a-
kind of goes that like they enjoyed hanging out when he was in the army and like there was nothing to do and like. But I mean, I'm just saying to his credit, he was not sleeping with her at 14. They spent
Just
a lot of
hand
time.
stuff.
I mean, I can't say if it was, but I'm just saying to paint just for the record.
Is she still alive?
Yeah,
She's
still
alive,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just and I know very little about the story of Elvis, but
Same.
I just find it hard to believe that a 14-year-old girl had the biggest teen idol in the world in her bedroom and nothing
They
happened.
might have been religious. I mean, I don't think at this point.
you know what? We do religious shows at the arena. I can't tell you how many hand jobs we've busted up.
I'm just saying, as far as like,
You want a hand job? Go to a Toby Mac show.
at this point, I don't know what there is to lose coming clean about this stuff. And like, she's
I
never
think-
said they did.
I think in the same way that they don't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They don't want to besmirch.
I
As
gotcha.
soon as
Freddie
you say
Mercury,
or Michael Jackson.
I think the other thing too is like it's a very different time. Like you're talking the mid 50s.
Yeah.
Like that wasn't that uncommon for 20-year-olds and 15-year-olds, and you know, I mean,
doesn't make it right.
But
it was
go
more...
through your family album and do the math on your great grandparents.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's, you know, like it was
red flags.
It's just different.
Yeah,
but either way, they don't. It's not part of the story,
right?
They
and
don't
they also
make it a part of
that
it.
actress doesn't play her as like a 14-year-old, right?
No,
like
because they use an actress that could also be an adult,
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
You know, she's not. It's the same actress. They don't choose a different actor.
And I will say, Austin Butler was, when he was able to do anything, because I feel like he is in this movie and he has a lot of screen time, but I feel like it's just doing an Elvis impression.
I don't. I
Okay,
think he was
right on.
I think he was great.
I think it was great. I don't think they gave him a lot to do.
Yeah, that's kinda where I'm
you know
at,
what I mean?
right?
Like he's always to me he like, and I overall I like this movie a lot.
Yeah.
It's really good.
I thought it was great.
But do I think that it like gave me the down and dirty story of Elvis Presley? No. It kind of felt like Greatest Hits. It kind of felt like Greatest Hits, not necessarily musically even, but Greatest Hits from his like, oh, here's a scene
Career
where she's a TV.
standpoint.
Here's a scene where, you know, he does his comeback special. But,
Right.
But I wasn't looking for like you know, the true story of his entire, like, I enjoyed this thoroughly.
I did.
And,
I did too.
And it didn't feel lacking because they didn't include that stuff to me, because I'm like, I don't know, I wasn't looking for that. I'm like, I don't know much about Elvis. I'm not
I
an
know,
Elvis.
I know I think the common stuff, right? Like, you know, the growing up in like a revivalist, I guess not revivalist, it's like a Baptist community, and like he merged
Bible Belt.
Yeah, he merged, you know, the Captain Marvel Jr. stuff. Like, I knew all that, and it's funny, Alex Ross, when he drew Kingdom Come, if you buy the trade, he's got like sketches of all different characters, and when he drew Captain Marvel Jr., he drew him like Elvis.
Nice. That's
Yeah, it was
nice
pretty
touch.
cool. But like, I knew all that, and like how he combined these two things, and people didn't, you know, getting hammered by the Senate because he was the senator was super racist, and he was wiggling his hips. So like, I
Crazy
knew
they could throw you in jail for dancing a certain way.
Well, I think
back
wasn't
then.
it because he was pushing the line between segregation? Isn't that what it was?
Yeah, that's how the movie tries to portray it. I mean,
But I think it was just like, isn't it? Those were like decency laws or
yeah, there was
like,
there was stuff like that, and it's, you know, and they're certainly trying to reframe Elvis in this movie in terms of like the raps on Elvis has always been that like, oh, he stole black music,
Right.
and made it, and it was a white guy doing black music, so it would be okay.
That's the
And-
problem with Back to the Future currently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're like, oh, the white kid playing Johnny B. Good is the kid, and then Chuck Berry hears it, and my argument with that is like, yeah, but he's singing it like he's singing
it
Chuck
was
Berry's
just a
song.
cute throwaway joke.
Exactly.
Like they weren't really
I totally
trying
agree
to
with
be
you.
like,
and now people are like, oh yeah, like he stole music.
Yeah, get out of here with that.
The white
It is just a
kid's
cute
like-
joke. It is not saying the white guy gave them their
Oh
music.
no,
Like,
we know that.
I know,
but like,
that's like,
yeah.
get
Well, and
out
also,
of here.
like,
Gotta think that about.
Right.
Well, the other thing too is like, well, you know, that's not a true story, right? Like,
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
like, just
No, Marty McFly.
Marty McFly.
spoiler.
Yeah. It's like, no.
But but back to Elvis, I do think like kind of what they're trying to do is put it in a historical context to show that, one, black music would never have been
Right.
on the radio if white people hadn't performed it, right? Like there was an interview not too long ago with Tom Hanks where he talks about how if they made Philadelphia Today, he would not play that role, right? They would never cast a straight guy in
Sure.
that role. And he's like, and that's appropriate. But if it wasn't for a movie like Philadelphia at that time frame, that helped move the needle on what people thought about gay people.
Sure.
And so
if it never got made, if he never did it,
yeah, you
then-
can make the argument
yeah.
that like, okay, yes, there's some cultural appropriation there, which was not only a word or phrase that didn't exist back then, it was a concept.
What year was that?
What's that?
Philadelphia, 95.
93?
Okay.
95?
Right on.
I don't. Yeah, but like nobody thought about music that way back then.
Sure.
And
well,
so
I mean, they even kind of have that comment, right, where the guy who I thought was Hank Williams, he's like Hank Snow.
Oh, the
and they
Hank
called-
Snow guy, yeah.
They called the other guy like Johnny Williams, and I was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
When he puts the record down and they play it, and they're like, oh, he's gonna play at the I want to say American Bandstand. That's not what it is. It's like the Hayride or something.
Yeah.
Hey, right.
And they're like, oh no, they're never gonna let a black dude play that. He's like, that's a white dude, and they're
Yeah.
just like, what? And that because like when you hear it back then, sound like a black dude,
Right.
and then of course he gets up there and he does his thing. I think that scene is fantastic.
Yeah.
where it's like the women just don't know what to do.
Right.
And as soon as he moves his hips, they just. I love the gal who was, I guess, in charge at Sun Records, the other gal who just like is trying to hold it in the entire time and then just like blurts out at the last possible second. I was like, that's a cool scene. Like that's
it really helped in like hyper stylized, showed the effect that he had and why he became such a superstar. But the other thing is, in these musical biopics, they don't usually show the audience. They don't usually show how people react to these huge bands that become superstars.
Right.
And so I thought that was a really interesting.
And you got 30 minutes of it at
show.
the end of Bohemian Rhapsody.
But focusing on the characters in the audience as opposed to the audience being a character. They never do close-ups of one person at the bands in these biopics.
Do you think that's because of how women reacted to him?
Yeah.
And how men reacted to their women reacting?
It was
to them?
hilarious to see the guys that were like, this is a threat, and these women
Right,
that were like,
I love the
I would like to see at least one guy that was like, no,
let's do it.
I'm into it.
Yeah, I'm glad you like that guy.
Yeah, I feel like this story, a lot of it isn't necessarily true in its specifics. It's true in the more grander,
I think
zoomed
that's
out.
fair.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that there was necessarily a moment in time where he went on stage and that specific thing happened. But like, I think that collectively, it's kind of represents what the experience was like as a nation.
Can you take liberties with stories like that though?
No, they just did.
Right. Well, that's true. But I mean, like, there's so much footage and pictures of him doing his thing that I feel like you can't. I mean, maybe that the
I look at his
hayride or
movie,
whatever.
you have to.
Yeah, I look at more of as a composite.
Yeah, it's
Right.
trying to
Sure,
show
sure.
3 events that you don't have time to film. It's not lying. It's just you're getting the point across that women loved him, and you're seeing the effect in one scene. It would just be too hard and boring to make a movie where they're like, oh, in this event, this happened, and this.
No. I just mean like when they're doing the concert at the baseball field, right? Like you can't. I don't think. I mean, to me at least, you can't really like fudge those details.
I mean, I think that scene at the baseball field is just completely made up out of whole cloth.
Really?
Yeah.
You don't think that happened?
No.
Interesting.
Not in that way. Not the
Isn't
whole.
that picture
not the
of him
whole
like standing on his toes? Like, isn't that?
No, I mean, were there concerts like that? Yes. Were there concerts where he might have got carted off? Yes. But were there concerts where it was like, if you do this, then this thing will happen? And I don't think because everything I've read says Colonel Tom Parker was always like, look, you do Elvis, I'll do business, and like whatever you do on stage is what you do on stage.
Yeah, apparently that whole bit where Elvis is supposed to be the new Elvis and all that wasn't anything to do with Elvis or Colonel Tom Parker. That was who was the guy, the host of the show?
Dick Cavett? No.
Oh, Hank Snow.
No. Who was the guy? The show? Which show was he going on?
Tonight Show.
Oh, Steve Allen.
Steve Allen.
Steve Allen.
That was Steve Allen did not want the indecency go on. Steve Allen wanted him to dress up in a suit and have a hound dog and sing to it on stage and be wholesome. So that was not that was dramatized. That Parker was trying to say, hey, we got to play ball to make the most money or whatever and not piss people off.
Just for context, Steve Allen was the original host of the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
He created the Tonight Show.
So
and I don't know if that was the Tonight Show because then he only does it for a few years and he pivots to prime time and has the Steve Allen Show.
He pulled a Leno, huh?
Well, except he didn't come back and
There
fire
it
the guy
is.
that he gave the role to. But
I think that was the Steve Allen show that they're showing happen. But so yeah, they take liberties like that with it. But again, I think they're not. The liberties they take, I don't think were like wildly inaccurate. I think they painted the
it's
picture.
to illustrate a larger point rather than to tell you a specific journey.
History of this in 19 whatever.
Yeah.
Now we talked about Austin Butler, who I thought was amazing. The kid, he's been acting for a while. He was a Disney guy. Apparently, I've never seen his other
I
stuff.
have no idea what else he's been in.
So he was in what I remember him from was Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He plays Tex.
Okay.
The guy that Brad Pitt hits in the face with the can of dog food.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was
End of the
good in
movie.
that, but a bit. I've never seen him like starring in a show or a movie, but I mean, the kid was awesome. I thought he became Elvis. He's still talking like that in interviews because for 2 years of his life, like, he still kind of has the Elvis accent, not on purpose. Like your brain just,
Right.
I won't say he method, but you know what I mean? If you want to make a believable performance, you kind of have to live that. And I think the result was excellent and he's still kind of working through that. But who we haven't talked about is Tom Hanks. Now going into this movie, of course, I didn't watch the trailers, but I'm in the theater and I hear, now my boy, and I'm like, oh my God, what is he doing? Like, this sounds horrendous. And I watched the movie and it sounded horrendous, but I thought his performance was really good.
I thought it worked. It didn't bother me at all.
That's
It didn't
the
bother
thing.
me either when they kind of reveal that like he's a man without a country, and they give him this accent that's nondescript. Right, like when he says, "Oh, I'm from North Carolina," it's like, well, you definitely don't talk
But
like somebody
it's-
from North Carolina.
Okay, so this is going to be my question. So I was surprised and very thankful that it was a good performance, and I thought it worked really well. It was not jarring, but it was a weird accent. It's a really weird choice. And so I have a clip here.
I did all the promotion, the outdoor advertising, and he did the show on the stage, and the fans made it possible. You could promote all you want to, but if the people don't want to buy a ticket, it doesn't help. So I did my part, Elvis did his show, and we were lucky. Great talent, and we had a great show and a lot of fun.
He sounds
It
like
just
an
sounds
old white guy.
He sounds like a dude from New
what
York.
the hell was Tom Hanks doing? Like, I get that he was originally foreign and came over and forged his identity, whatever, but like the dude talked like an old white guy.
Yeah.
He did not sound
That's
like a bad
weird.
Creole accent. Like, I mean, what the hell
I
was he
thought
doing?
when they said that he was like from Holland, I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe it's like a.
But
maybe
did
I
it even
don't
sound
Maybe I don't
Dutch
know what a
or-
Holland accent or a
I
Dutch
have
accent
no
sounds
idea.
like.
The only thing I can think is he was just trying to have a kind of a shorthand to kind of show just
that he
kinda-
wasn't really American.
or just not even American, that he was just very otherworldly.
Yeah.
He was just larger than life and this kind of weird, like you don't really know where he's from, why he's here.
Which is kind of his story, right? Like
Yeah.
he has no passport. He has no birth certificate. There's no record of a
He
Colonel
never
Tom
became
Parker.
a citizen. He wasn't a colonel. He was a private. He was in the Army for 2 years, served in the U.S. Army, and then came back and then went to fight again. And then he kind of had like a breakdown, went AWOL, got thrown in jail for a little bit, and then dishonorably discharged. But like, so he was in the Army, but the colonel was, I think after he was with Elvis, I was reading that he went to some state. I don't know if it was in Mississippi or where it was, but someone gave him an honorary title for just the stuff that he had done in his career, and so they bestowed that upon him. So he was actually, like a lot of people say, oh, he made that up. Like, it's like the truth is somewhere in between.
Right.
I mean, if someone gives him an honorary title of colonel, well, then that doesn't mean he's lying. He was bestowed that.
Yeah, like when somebody gives you an
degree,
honorary
yeah.
doctorate.
Yeah, right,
you're
right.
just like, I'm a doctor now.
He was in the Army. He got the honorary title of colonel. So, like, so the
I
truth
bet
is,
you Sir Paul McCartney doesn't even own a suit of armor.
Bet you right.
Yeah.
I bet you right.
Yeah.
Well, you know
Yeah.
what? He might.
Yeah, I take that back.
Yeah. he
So
might.
there was definitely a choice by Tom Hanks. I don't think it's a good accent, but I think his performance is really good. So it's a weird thing where I think it's an odd choice. It sounds weird. The guy didn't talk like that, so it's just a weird mixture of where did
Sure.
you come up with this? But it does still kind of get across that who is this guy? Where is he
But
from?
he's just weird and different
yeah.
and not normal.
And so the other thing is, you see in this movie, like Joe mentioned, that it seems like they paint him as the villain and he's just stealing from Elvis and stuff. But I have this clip from Tom Hanks here, and he went to have dinner with her.
And I was expecting to hear stories about the distrust she had for Colonel Tom Parker over these many years. And she said, no, he was a wonderful man, and I wish he was alive today. He took really great care of us.
So, I mean,
I don't think the movie he's a piece of
Right.
but he's their piece of right. Like
Yeah,
it's like I mean, does he take advantage of Elvis at times? Absolutely.
but would Elvis have been Elvis without him?
Probably
Probably
not.
So I mean,
You
like,
know?
and I'm not trying to defend everything he did,
but I think the movie
also
shows
credit
that.
to right. But a lot of people are taking away from it.
Yeah.
Look how like what Joe said. I think is how most people are reacting, but I don't think the movie paints it.
Yeah,
like
I was
he-
surprised he came off looking
As
as
good.
good as he did in the movie, because I know that like the rap on him is that he's
a scumbag.
He's a scumbag, and
Yeah.
so I thought the movie at least showed that like there was a period of time. And then at some point that pivoted, and basically, when rock shifts, when the Beatles caused the shift in rock, that's they start to lose their grip on pop culture,
Right.
and that becomes problematic for them.
The
Elvis
first
is a
stone
one.
to fall.
Elvis becomes a one-man Nickelback.
I mean, I mean, when they talk about like setting up residency in Vegas, and it sounds like he was the first one to do that for like that long a time. Is that Mickey Cohen? Is that who that's supposed to be?
I have no idea.
So the guy that Tom Parker is making the deal with?
Yeah.
Like the head of the hotel, the international.
Yeah, like they call him Mickey, and I was like, I wonder if that's supposed
so
to be
he's not
Mickey
the
Cohen.
first. I mean, obviously Sinatra and all them were out there.
I guess that's true.
And so, but he was, I think, the first of the next generation.
I gotcha.
Right?
I gotcha.
And so, like, that was the, a clear shift for Vegas to go from doing the kind of classic Vegas lounge singer. And
Right.
I mean, not to dump on Sinatra because obviously he's great, but
I gotta tell you,
he is
there's
kind
a
of
story.
But he is kind of the greatest lounge singer.
Yeah, no,
You know?
totally. I think he knew how to give me that story.
Yeah.
By
Well, they've done it before.
By
Like,
Scorsese.
there's been TV movies and stuff.
There was a TV movie for Elvis.
That's true.
By John Carpenter, starring Kurt Russell.
Yeah, there's
But
been a couple
Yeah.
TV movies.
But we do see a lot of stuff where it is a sad part of Elvis's life where he had the chance to be bigger, even bigger than he was internationally, and because Colonel Tom Parker didn't have a passport and couldn't travel, like from my research that I did, that was true. He held Elvis back from going on all these tours. He could have made $1 million in a day, and he had private jets. They had access to travel wherever they wanted, and he held him back because I think he was scared that if Elvis got a taste of that, he may want to spend more time over there, and Colonel Tom Parker could not travel and watch him and make sure that he was only doing what was best for their
Right.
business interest. He was worried he would lose him,
Right.
lose his grasp on him. And so in that regard, obviously that is really crappy. But I think, again, the truth lies in the middle somewhere where it's like he did make Elvis. He invested all his time and money. He paid for all the promotional stuff. He did everything to get him to where he was, and then also did merchandise. He's the one that
the original. I say this in jest, but he's like the original Hulk Hogan, where it was like, just put my name on everything.
Yeah, I mean,
anything
the
and everything.
idea of bands having merchandise or artists like that having, like, that's a pretty new concept. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't.
I don't.
Really,
that part with the buttons was genius.
I
He
think
really
that-
did that.
he really did that. That's
let's
yeah,
make money off of people that hate Elvis.
Yeah,
Genius.
But like, there's no like Glenn Miller tour T-shirts.
Yeah.
That's
out
true.
there.
That's fair.
That's
fair.
So like he had a business mind. So just saying like, yes, did he do crappy stuff? Like we've all said and agree on, yes, but also credit to being the one that invented this, phenomenon. So, they were business partners, and Priscilla spoke at his funeral. Like there isn't a huge like, yeah, we hate him and he ruined our family and took advantage. Like he did some crappy stuff, but also
those two,
I think people also need to remember that the concert industry wasn't mature enough to support an artist of Elvis magnitude.
What do you mean?
There wasn't an infrastructure for bands to go out and play to 20 and 30 and 40,000 people a night, and that's why the Beatles stopped touring. Right, like the Beatles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Beatles stopped touring because they were like, "This is miserable," and they couldn't hear themselves. The only reason the Beatles, because the sound systems weren't that good, and then because of all the screaming on top of it. But the only reason the Beatles even sounded good live was because of the Cavern Club. Right, like they had played 8 hours a night for like 3 years, to where they were so tight they could play that stuff without being able to hear it.
Right.
Like,
that makes sense.
I don't know that another band could have played Shea Stadium. They wouldn't, not in that setting, not with those speakers, not with that sort of fan reaction. They couldn't hear
they
themselves.
just knew what they were doing.
They had
any
the
feedback.
muscle memory of you count on 3 and we go.
Start playing. Yeah.
And
that's kind of that's super impressive.
And those sets were really short too. They were like 45 minutes.
Wow.
Like they're not.
Could you imagine? I mean, even today, like, what's the average set for a main rock show?
I mean, for like a headliner with just one support act, they're probably going to play at least 90 minutes. But
Right.
most of the bigger acts, like I saw, like McCartney at Glastonbury was 2:45. I went to see Elton John not too long ago, and he was like 2:45, 3 hours. I think
Wow.
Billy Joel's normally doing 2.5.
Okay,
So
45 minutes and we're out of here.
yeah. And so I mean, but there wasn't an infrastructure, and that's also like why now it's like almost the top 100 cities in this market or top 100 size markets are going to have probably at least a full size arena.
Oh, sure.
that they could have someone play.
Yeah.
Where back then, like when they wanted to go play Shea Stadium, they just had to invent how to do it.
Yeah.
That's
like
crazy.
There wasn't a guy you could call. Like they
Did
just
they
had
know?
to invent
So
it.
like, did they know? Like, if we play Shea Stadium, we're gonna sell this thing out. Like, do they know going in that they're gonna sell it out? Or are they just like, we're gonna play it and whatever happens happens?
So I mean, they sold it to promoters, and then the promoters were taking the risk, and so the Beatles got X amount. And I mean, I don't know the actual deal structure, but the way it normally works is you get a guarantee, a certain amount versus a percentage of the gate after expenses, and a certain amount for a promoter profit. And so but yeah, so like back then, like it was.
You're
like,
just taking a chance.
You were taking a chance. You know,
They probably felt pretty comfortable though.
I would think
Oh,
so.
for
When
sure,
you
for
know,
sure.
But at the same
like,
time,
selling out
like
a baseball stadium's way different than selling out.
and also
a
like
hockey stadium.
there wasn't anything. You were still rolling the dice. There wasn't anything like it to look back at.
No.
You know, like
sure.
you know, if you wanted to do that with the Stones, then you could say, well, when the Beatles went out, here's what happened. But when the Beatles went out, there was nothing to look at, nothing. You know, and that's where like I think Bob Eubanks started as a Beatles promoter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like he bought a couple shows in the California area, and that kind of. But yeah,
2 and 2. I'll see you in 2 and 2.
No, that's Chuck Woolery.
That's Chuck Woolery.
Bob Eubanks was the Dating Game.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah, come on, watch your match
Yeah,
game.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Game
But-
Show Network doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So
I
Match
love that
Game
channel.
was Gene Rayburn.
all right,
Yeah, dating game. Sorry, dating game was Chuck Woolery.
get it together. Yeah, I mean,
So
like
this movie is told from the perspective of Tom Parker, which is kind of interesting that they do that, and it's not a story making Tom Parker again look like the good guy or something. It's not this alternate telling of the story. It's pretty much the story that you kind of know, but it's from his perspective, and I like that. You know, it's him basically on his deathbed. It's told from, he died in 97. This was sometime, like maybe this is in 95 or something. It's before he dies. He's had a heart attack or something, and he's rushed to the hospital. But it's told in Baz Luhrmann fashion. You know, it's just in and out of these sweeping views of around the International in Vegas and through a hotel room window and down. They do the ambulance shot. You know,
it
down
was
the
definitely like
building
very
and-
stylized and.
But you know what? I'll tell you what. Going into this
He's kind of
movie,
your jam, though, right?
I love Baz Luhrmann, and going into this movie, I'm like, God, how is this going to work with an Elvis movie? I thought this is so weird, and I'm like, it kind of works.
I think he's probably the one that it would work with, right?
That energy, that nonstop, that weird stylized, like I don't know, it
They're
got me
sneaking in
invested.
hip hop.
Yeah.
for no reason.
Right. Yeah.
Like
Doja
it's-
Cat,
but it works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was cool when they went through the. It was in Memphis when he was going through like the black clubs and. They were singing and they did the Doja Cat song and
Oh, yeah,
Isn't
I think
that-
on
is it-
Beale Street, I think.
okay, yeah, because
When he meets BB
they
King?
bounce around, yeah, and they're all in there. I thought it was cool with the anachronistic music.
Well,
and,
that's the other thing is like they got to get in, their cameos, right? So you get BB King, you get Little Richard, you get Fats Domino, you get.
I thought Little Richard number was good.
That Little Richard, that
made me
dude-
go, we need a Little Richard movie because that was
maybe
cool.
I'd be all right with that. I'm sure his story's bonkers too.
Yeah.
But that dude was pretty good.
I thought it was
a
really
pretty-
that stood out to me. But
Yeah.
you get to see all the different musical artists and him growing up. But it really is it's Tom Parker recounting his story of how he met Elvis, and Elvis's parents were like didn't have that much money. The dad ended up going to jail
for
so
passing a bad check for $14.
yeah, which back then was probably like
Yeah, a little-
$50 or $100,
Yeah, no, yeah,
but
right,
still. Yeah, and he got 3 years jail time, and he only served, I think, 9 months of it. But it caused them they didn't have any money, so they had to move into a black neighborhood, and it was this poor area. And so, but Elvis found influence from the music.
Yeah, you had
in
the
area.
country stuff, and then you had like the church as well.
It was
and he
mainly
just
like the
found,
R&B. It was the R&B.
It was like a Baptist
in the churches.
pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a tent revival.
Like a tent revival,
Yeah.
yeah. And he found this sound, and he figured out, he combined it, and I do like the scene where he's bouncing from place to place, right? He's looking at almost what I thought was like an outhouse, but it must have just been like a shed. I don't know. Where he's listening to a guy play like jazz music.
That's what I'm saying. No, it's like
And then
it's
he'd run
rhythm and blues.
Yeah,
right?
rhythm and blues.
Yeah.
And then he'd run to the revival, and he'd get overtaken by the sound there, and then
Yeah, and that was great the way they mashed it up. Again,
Yeah.
like Luhrmann's just energetic.
Supposedly, there's a 4-hour cut of this movie.
No, there's not.
And I would love to see it.
That would be.
This
It's not
movie-
often I'm saying I'd watch a longer version of a movie.
This was like almost 3 hours.
It was like
Yeah,
two and a
two and a
half.
half.
It flew by.
Yeah, it did.
There was a point in the movie where it's got to be halfway through the movie, and I'm like, well, this story has a lot more to go. So I'm like, this movie's been going for a while and has a while, and I haven't felt it at all. Like,
Yeah.
I was just into it and realized that,
I realized how long we had been sitting there when we got to the Christmas special.
yeah.
I was like, dang, like there's a lot more to this movie. Like,
Speaking of things that are just completely.
oh really?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, that was
like, there's no way that they had built sets and stuff, but they were like, oh, but we're not going to use them.
yeah,
Right,
that
right,
switch
right.
at the
That's-
end is like, that's insane. That's
Yeah.
pure
And
insanity.
Was there a Christmas special?
Yeah. Oh, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Those
But
are Christmas.
it
That's where you get
wasn't.
the blue Christmas
Yeah,
from.
Oh, okay,
but it
okay.
wasn't really a Christmas special.
Right.
From my research and the little documentary things I saw, it was never designed to be a pure, here's all the Christmas sets, and he's dressed up like Santa Claus. There was only one Christmas song, and he sang the Christmas song, and the rest of it was just other stuff. Like,
Yeah.
that whole thing is dramatized. Hippies did not come in and then just decide to do something completely.
But
Yeah.
did he hook up with those two dudes? And when I say
Did
hook
he
up,
hook-
I mean like,
Yeah.
did he like take them on as like, you know, his new business managers?
I don't think so. From what I saw,
He
that
was the guy from Stranger Things.
He was good.
yeah,
Billy
he
and
was good.
Stranger Things. Yeah. I don't think so. I'm not saying those people weren't involved to maybe try to help modernize his image or something, but
Because you do get that, that 68 comeback special with the black leather suit.
Right.
Like, that's, I mean,
Yeah.
where he's trying to, like, revamp his image and kind of show that,
cool
like,
again.
like, hey, I'm cool, too.
Right.
Because the thing is that once the Beatles hit, it became very uncool for a rock band to not create their own product, right? Before then,
to cover stuff, you mean?
before then, you had people who wrote songs and people who sang songs.
I gotcha.
And so then the Beatles did both, and then after that, then it was like, well, a real rock band writes their own songs.
I
and
gotcha.
so that kind of put Elvis on the other side of that divide. I remember growing up, it was like, you could even kind of see it on oldies radio. It's like it stopped with the Beatles, and it really, oldies radio stopped with the Beatles. Like, they would play the Beatles like pre-Revolver.
Oh,
Like,
really?
Once you hit, so they would play like Help and I Want to Hold Your Hand and all, but once you get to once the Beatles discovered acid, like, they stopped, the oldies radio didn't play it anymore.
Okay.
now
Interesting. I didn't realize
oldies is
that.
what, Metallica?
Yeah, it's
and-
weird.
Yeah,
Like, it
oldies
is.
is
It
weird
is
now.
strange.
but if you think about it, like, it's weird that it's as old as it is. 'Cause,
That's
like,
true.
Because, like, oldies radio kind of started in the 80s, so I would have been like, I would have been a teenager.
Yeah.
But the stuff they were playing was all like 20 to 25 years old.
Yeah,
Where if you were doing that now, you'd be playing
In
Maroon
the 2000s.
Yeah.
It's so
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, like, so the oldies was like 1430 on the AM. Like, if you want to go like old, like, that's
Yeah.
what that was. And then
Yeah.
the station here was 103.3, and it was
Clue 103.
yeah, it was same stuff. It was the Beatles. It was like that kind of era.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody over there the other day. This is only for local people will understand this. And I referred to it as Clue, and she was like, "Actually, it's KLOU. Is what we call it now."
Uh-huh.
And I pulled out my Simpsons reference where I was just like, "Well, the hillbillies want to be called people of the land, but it's not going.
It's not going to happen."
That's funny.
That's pretty good. Yeah, so it's really I'm not going to say it's a paint by numbers, but it's like big spot in his career.
They just jump through these different things, and it's
But they show you so much
yeah.
in
Yeah.
those kind of interstitial montages as they're flowing, and there's so many different things going
Yeah.
on the screen simultaneously that it doesn't fall into this rhythm of
No.
the and then biopic,
No.
which is
Sure.
where it's just skipping from anecdote to anecdote, even though when you zoom back and write it out, it's kind of exactly what it does, but it never feels
It
like
doesn't.
that
Well,
because
that's-
of all the ways he dresses it up in between. And
the length gives them time to show more, whereas
Yeah.
at other times you may see a film bouncing around quickly because it has to. They have to cut from thing to
Yeah,
thing.
the one
And-
that comes to mind for me is the James Brown biopic,
Yeah.
where
Oh,
the
yeah.
performance is great, but it's just like, remember the time this happened? Remember the time this happened? Remember the time we saved Philadelphia? Remember the time this? And it's like they're great anecdotes, but it's just a collection of anecdotes.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel, and
that's
I think
the way Bohemian Rhapsody is.
yeah, and I think
Yeah.
adding Tom Parker like, and doing it from that perspective gives it a cohesion. And like, it's what made Straight Outta Compton so great.
Oh yeah,
Like,
and that's another one that they kind of softened up a little bit.
They softened up a lot.
Not a
but-
little bit. They softened up a little.
Yeah,
bit.
but there's a through line. There's an actual plot instead of just and then.
Yeah.
So.
Makes it a lot more interesting. And you're right, the Tom Parker narrating the story and getting his perspective on it, I think, does make it really interesting. And the time they spend in each like year or decade or whatever feels lived in, where I felt like I took in a lot of information about his life.
Yeah.
It wasn't just here's the time they played that stadium, here's the whatever. And so I really liked that part of it. The relationship with Priscilla, like once he's in the army he meets her, but then it flashes forward and they're getting married or whatever. But I think I read that they were only married for 4 years, and to me I felt like
right?
I felt like
I think that sounds about right.
like to me in the movie, again, doesn't have time to like really sit and map that out for you, but you felt their whole relationship.
Yeah.
But it was only 4 years.
But if you think about it, that entire movie only covers like 20 years time.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and honestly, it probably was really more like 15 because
sure.
because the 70s get kind of glossed over
A little bit.
It's crazy to think that as much impact as he had on pop culture,
he wasn't.
he
When
was
did famous
40
for that long?
He was 42 when he
Well, that's
died.
what
Yeah.
I was saying. Like I was trying to, as I'm watching it, they're talking about like somebody slips him a like a death threat, and it's got the Zodiac symbol, and I was like, good Lord, like that was the 60s, and then they're talking about Manson. I'm like, well, that's the 70s. Like, so it's crazy to look at his career and like what was going on in the world.
It wouldn't be crazy for Elvis to still be alive today.
No.
Like, I mean, like, not. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what if Elvis is? I mean, like,
Like Priscilla's alive.
If that hadn't happened,
Yeah.
he'd be 87.
Yeah.
He'd be 86. He'd be 87 next month.
But to us, it feels like he's been dead forever. But it's
Right.
like he died really young. Yeah,
42.
He
I'm 40.
That's what
Like,
I'm saying.
that's-
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's great. I said the same thing to Ryan. We saw the movie, and I'm like, he was only 6 or 7 years older than me when he died. I'm like,
He's 10 years younger than me.
That's
Yeah.
are you serious?
Yeah, I'll be 52
Holy
in September.
Wow.
But Ryan said something like, he's like, that was young, or we were talking about how young he was, and I'm like, yeah, because I'm like, that was only 6 or 7 years older than me. I'm like, I'm not planning on going out there early. I'm
Yeah,
like,
no
that is
kidding.
really young. But look at what he accomplished. So to us, it feels like he's this mythical figure. I mean, he was,
Yeah.
but in this short period of time, to us, it kind of feels like, well, yeah, he always was around. He was famous for so long, but man,
It's because he stayed famous.
Yeah.
after
Well,
he
I was going to
died.
say, like,
and
when
Tom Parker,
Yeah.
to his credit again, and you can disagree with the business dealings or whatever, but who knows without him what would have happened. But apparently at Elvis's funeral, he had the dad sign a contract over about here's the percentages, and we're going to keep Elvis alive and keep promoting his music, and telling radio stations and stuff like prepare for a surge in popularity, as happens when these big
That's why these guys and gals now have stuff you've never heard, because when unfortunately they do pass away, they're gonna have it's the Prince story, right? Where the gal
all
was
the
like,
albums that are
he's got music videos and albums and
Look how
like
much
whole
Tupac stuff. he
yeah
had.
exactly they're like you've never even seen.
But I think Tom Parker in that deal, and again, he's doing all the business stuff, whatever, but, the family got like 22%, and then other investors and business people got 22.5 or whatever, and Tom Parker got 50% to promote him after he died. So he was always doing that kind of stuff, but again, you have to ask, who else would have been doing it?
Yeah.
Would it have made as much money? 22% of $100 million is more than 100% of $5 million.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
but also
relative.
it's like the idea of an artist getting more popular after they died. That's a new concept, right?
Oh, really?
Like, I mean, yeah. I mean, think about artists that died in the 50s and 60s. I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
Like, did that happen to Buddy Holly? Did that happen to the Big Bopper? Did that
Right.
happen to Bobby Darin? No. I mean, are they still around? Are there? But people didn't really start doing that with them until they saw that it could be a thing.
Right.
Tom Parker invented that. I'm not saying he was the first, but he was one of the biggest and earliest to do
Yeah.
it. And so that's what I mean. I'm not like in some kind of fan club. I'm just
No,
saying
no,
I'm trying
I-
to look at it from two sides and say,
He was a scumbag, but he did what he needed to do.
He did some things that were bad, but he also did some things that were good, and maybe wholly responsible or majority responsible for the Elvis we know today. And especially when the family, like Priscilla, is like, he was a great person, he took care of us, it makes me feel better and say, like, wait a minute, maybe he wasn't a complete villain. He did questionable things,
Right.
but also he did good
I think
things.
it's easy to vilify a record promoter.
Yeah, it is.
now because of what we've seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The Kesha thing,
Taylor Swift.
like all of that stuff.
Totally.
It's totally easy, and I think a lot of them are heads. Right, like I think there's a lot of them out there that will latch onto a star and will drain that star until that star has nothing.
You'll be
left
famous.
and-
We'll get 100%, but we'll make you a star. Yeah,
Right.
that's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
So
So I think it's easy in 2022 to make him the bad guy, but at the same time, and he is the bad guy. Like in this movie, I think that I interpret it as, but I also agree with what you're saying is that he did what he had to do to keep Elvis.
Because like Tom said, back then there wasn't anything to work with. Tom Parker had to invent how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
And so like that is worth something. I'm sorry, it is. And I'm not saying that all the decisions, should he keep working when he's almost dead, give him some drugs? Like if that really happened, obviously that's horrible, and there were questionable things. But talking about going to the beginning, it's like
I will say every time they said Dr. Nick, I was like, "Hi, Dr. Nick."
Right. Hi, everybody. So again, bad, questionable things happening, but I think good things too. And it's really easy for us to want to have a villain, especially in movies, right? There's who's the bad guy,
Right.
always looking for the villain, and so I think it's just important to look at both sides. That's all.
It's
No,
a little.
I
I don't
it's-
disagree with that.
Yeah, and I think for as much as much as is thrown at you in this movie, I think that relationship is pretty nuanced.
Sure,
You know?
sure. Yeah, I think that's a testament to Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. Like
Yeah.
they're both. I agree that he is really good when he's given something to do.
I just wish we had more insight into who Elvis was.
Yeah,
Like,
that's kinda where I was at. I
I
agree,
never
yeah.
really felt like I was seeing.
He loved his
What
he
he
loved
thought.
his mom.
Yeah,
And he loved he loved
it
Priscilla.
was
He
all
loved-
pretty surface.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is that almost for his life, I think that's kind of like how he was kind of used in that way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that we never really got to see that because no one really did. Like he bounced around, he performed, and then he was told where to go and show up, and he did what he wanted to do in his off time with his friends and family and affairs and things. But I mean, really, the Elvis that was a person, like the world never really got to see that. And
Maybe I got to tell you, maybe Elvis didn't know who he was anymore.
Yeah,
I think once you reach that level, again, I'm only referring to Prince because we've had stories about Prince that were from Kevin Smith where he's just like, I don't think he was being a he just had no concept of like what was reality when he says like I want a camel.
Yeah.
And they're just
That
like,
doesn't
it's
seem unreasonable to him.
no, not to him, but like to a normal person, you're like, it's 3 a.m. in Minnesota,
Yeah.
and you're asking for a camel.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen. Like,
I think the other thing to keep in mind too is the idea of someone having this level of fame was pretty new.
Yeah.
sure.
You know, I
and
mean,
he's making money hand over fist.
The
too.
technology didn't
Spending.
exist.
Yeah.
Really, the only way to be that well known was politics, right? If you became
Sure.
president or something. But beyond that, like the idea of being a famous movie or TV star, it's 57 when he really breaks on the scene. That concept had really only been around for about 30 years.
Oh, okay.
You know?
That's the other thing. Like, yeah. So he lived. He was
Electronic medium was pretty new. I mean, most houses still didn't have TVs yet.
Look
Like
at it roll.
What's that?
Said, look at it roll. We have
Yeah.
2 TVs.
Yeah.
Nobody has 2 TVs.
But yeah. So I mean, like you didn't really have the electronic media in the same way. You had radio,
Sure.
and you had movies, but that was it. And so now you're, and he was kind of harnessing that new medium of television in a way that music artists hadn't really cracked yet.
Right.
And then the Beatles had busted wide open.
Feels like we got it.
Yeah. And then the Monkees.
Sure.
I mean,
No, I guess that TV show. I get
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Totally.
I mean, they don't get the credit for it in the same
Yeah.
way. And obviously I'm biased, but I feel like I'm biased because I see that.
Right.
I see what they achieved there.
Yeah.
I do like that line from Hank Snow when like the gal throws her underwear up on the stage and he goes, "Is that a pair of women's undergarments?" And
He
Tom
won't
Parker's-
be doing that to any of my songs.
And Tom Parker's like, "I believe it is."
Well, yeah, and then he's like, "Yeah, he won't be doing that to any of my songs." And
He's like,
Parker's
"You're probably right."
He's like, "You're right." And then, see ya. We won't be with you anymore. One of the things that the movie does kind of gloss over, they show it, like to their credit, it is in there if you're looking for it or paying enough attention. But it has been estimated from again my research that Elvis made some people think Elvis in his career of this even 20, 30 years or whatever, brought in something like $1 billion, which is just insane.
Yeah.
When he died, his estate had $7 million. That's not Tom Parker's fault. And so I think, again, we have to look at, and they show it in this movie a little bit, but they don't focus on it as much as maybe they should. He spent money like it was going out of style. And
because he was like, he's like Johnny Depp, right?
Sure.
Johnny Depp's like, well, then
or Eazy-E.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Depp was literally like, call up Disney, let's make another Pirates movie. I'm out of
$40
money.
million.
And like Elvis could do the same thing. Like it's probably pretty weird to be in a spot where you're just like, well, money has no value.
Yeah, I want to do this. Just make it happen.
Yeah,
you
reach a point of like wealth.
Yeah,
where you're just like, what do I got to do? Another stupid Pirates movie?
Yeah,
all right.
A TV show, a movie,
whatever.
3 weeks in Vegas. Okay.
Right.
So in the movie, you see he has this entire entourage. He has his childhood friends that are with him throughout the whole movie, his whole life. They're on payroll. They're out there. They want to buy 4-wheelers and buy cars and fireworks and whatever they want to do. They just do it. And at some point in the movie, someone, whether it's his dad or Parker, someone tells him like, "You're out of money. You're spending it."
I think it's his dad, because Parker, when he says he's leaving Parker, he gives him like a line by line like bill, and you're like, we're at negative $8 million.
Yeah, you've spent it all. And so even though Tom Parker took 50%, which is unheard of for a manager, but again, I'd argue he's more than just a manager, but he took 50%. But if Elvis made $1 billion, or even if he made 100, 200 million, it doesn't matter. Like Elvis still got 100 million of that.
Yeah.
And he died with 7. So someone was spending Elvis's money.
I would also say, in defense of Colonel Tom Parker, that managers typically take 10 or 15%, but they also typically have multiple clients.
Bingo.
Like he was like,
His
I'm
full-time
going to
job
take
was
more,
Elvis.
but you're going to be my only client.
Right.
I think he was a business partner.
Yeah.
He wasn't a manager.
So,
they were business partners.
yeah.
So that's interesting.
Really.
So does Lisa Marie have any rights to Michael Jackson and her dad?
I don't think so, because
They didn't have a kid, right?
Because
did they?
I don't think so.
I don't.
But they got divorced, like long before he died. So I can't, that'd be like asking, does Dawn have any rights to my likeness?
Well, I just think that'd be
Yeah.
a red flag. If for more than one reason.
Yeah, I don't think.
But
she
I
has
think I
anything-
think of like Courtney Love, right? Like she has.
She was
But they were
married to
married.
him
They
when
were
he
still
died.
married
when he died.
Yeah.
I got you.
He just
I
was
gotcha.
in. They were married and got divorced, and
Okay.
there's no connection there. The family would inherit, or whoever's in his will, like
Sure.
kids.
I'm sure she gets a
or-
percentage though, right? Like they got married in L.A. I'm sure they've got some dumbass
Oh, I don't
like
know.
marriage laws.
Yeah, I don't know on that one. But as far as for Elvis, I mean, the Presley estate. I mean, Priscilla's still alive, and then I'm sure his daughter Lisa Marie, is at the
Who
top
looks
of that. And-
like I talk about Courtney Love, but like Frances Bean looks just like her dad, and so does Lisa Marie, and it is eerie how similar she looks.
well, did you
to-
see? Unfortunately, he's passed away. But did you see what his grandson looked like?
No, wait, the grandson passed away.
Yeah, he
dang.
suicide. Yeah, but I think the pressure of he was in music, and I think the pressure of walking in his
thank you.
footsteps,
Like, no
and
way.
he looked a lot like Elvis, and so I think he was constantly being compared to him. But Riley Keough, his name, oh god, maybe you can look it up. It's Ben Keough. I can't remember what his name is, but he passed away a couple years ago. But Riley Keough's an actor. She was in she was in Mad Max Fury Road as one of the bad guys.
She's his
Morton
granddaughter.
Joe's- Yeah, and she was in Zola. As the. Did you see Zola?
No.
Okay, so Zola.
I know what it is, but
there's the story. Zola is like the main character, and then the one that takes her on this crazy ride, the blonde. That's Riley Keough. That's Elvis's granddaughter.
interesting.
Um,
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
a good movie.
Is it Zola?
Yeah.
All right, I'll check it out.
Benjamin Keough.
Benjamin, Ben. So unfortunately he passed away, but he was kind of the spitting image and talented, but the pressure of
Oh, that's unnerving.
I mean you could definitely see
Yeah,
it.
for
So,
sure.
Very, very sad there, but she's a really good actor and still doing stuff. I think you're going to see a lot more from her. Talented family for sure, but so I would think that Priscilla and Lisa Marie are at the top of that,
Sure.
and all his family, but that's because they're kids and
Yeah, Lisa Marie's getting all that naked gun money.
naked.
They just have to do the edits where they take out
The
O.J.
O.J.
Simpson.
Yeah,
It's a shame because that's a great gif of them all slapping their heads at the same time.
Yeah.
But he's in the GIF. Like it's
weird. I mean, I love those movies, and I grew up with them, and so the more and more that
Have you ever seen the TV show?
No.
Police Squad.
Oh my God,
oh,
so
the
good.
Police Squad.
Yeah.
I think
Police
I've seen
Squad's
some, but I
amazing.
haven't
So
watched.
much better.
Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah.
Oh, 'cause
If
those
you
movies are so
if you
good.
like Naked Gun, you
Okay.
will love Police Squad.
Okay,
Yeah.
I need to check. I've
And
seen
you
some
can
stuff,
pick it up
but
on
not-
DVD for like $7 or $8.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
and there's
It's
only
like
6
two-
episodes.
Yeah, I was like, it's only one season.
yeah.
I thought Austin Butler's performance was really good. I thought he sounded like him.
Is he singing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, then
that's-
more power to
I
him.
saw an
That's what I'm
interview
saying. He's
though
doing the
where
Taron Egerton
where
thing.
Baz Luhrmann says he sings young Elvis, and I'm like, is he not singing the older stuff?
Well,
Like the later era stuff?
but we don't see the later. We don't see
Well-
later era chubby Elvis until the last
Yeah.
5 minutes.
But
and that's
but you get stuff on stage with him,
yeah, but he's
and I
not
wouldn't
the-
consider 68 young Elvis.
I don't know.
he's
Yeah, I'd
still-
have to look
He's
into it.
still
I thought he
fit and
did it
trim.
all.
I did think that was weird. That I was like, when do we get to fat Elvis? Oh,
But
we're gonna shoot it from behind and have a guy in a bodysuit. That's what we're gonna do.
Austin Butler was in makeup, and I thought did a phenomenal job. That heartbreaking final performance, I thought was really good. He looked just like him.
Yeah.
He sounded like him. I
do like that they intertwine it with Elvis, like
Yeah.
that, and it's
and
creepy
at the end,
how
you
much he
see,
looks like
at
him.
the end, they do the same shots they recreate throughout the movie, and it's
Right.
like God, they did such a good job
Yeah.
with all the outfits and on stage with the capes and everything, and
It's great.
And then that heartbreaking final performance, and I thought Austin
I didn't
Butler
realize
did
that he was
great.
going to be in A Star Is Born, and then it sounds like Colonel Parker mucked that up
He wanted top billing, is what I read.
over Barbara Streisand.
Yeah, and they wouldn't give it to him. So that's
Shocking.
What Chris Christopherson
Well, I
did.
mean, he's a bigger star than her, but not on the
And-
screen.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a
Right,
tough
right.
call.
yeah,
but
so that's apparently why he
Yeah.
lost out. That's what I at least read.
I do like that line where he's just like Barbara did get along with the Colonel, and then that's kind of like well, as far as it goes.
yeah,
Elvis wanted to break out from doing all those silly movies,
He wanted to be a
And-
serious actor.
and he just wouldn't. Parker wouldn't.
Well, they say, and he says that like he could have been Brando. Like there's he was
Yeah.
as I guess there's one that they reference like in the very beginning when he starts acting. They're like he's as good as Brando, which is a pretty bold statement.
yeah. Like
but,
I
you know,
don't
I don't know
all
about that, but
yeah.
but
Yeah,
still,
I
like
do
he
think he was
I think
held
he has
back. Tom Parker wanted to sell records and pop songs and things, and so he concentrated on the movies, and they do a good job in the movie of showing like they started doing them faster and with less budget. They were just churning them out to try to business model wise. So they got more money in the short term, but it didn't make him a movie star like
No.
he could have been, like a respected.
When did he start to become? I guess he never stopped being popular, huh? Like when did that start to fall?
Well, I feel like with the Beatles, like I
Okay,
feel
sure,
like
sure, sure.
there's this cultural shift, and then I think there's also a lot of backlash against Elvis because of who his fans are, right? Like his fans tend to be poorer and rural, and you know what I mean. And so
Right.
it was like it reminds me in a lot of ways of like CBS sitcoms in the late '60s. It's like they had. Beverly Hillbillies and Green Acres and Andy
I got
Griffith,
you.
and like they were really popular, but they weren't cool.
I gotcha.
And so Elvis reached, he starts off cool, and then at some point, he's popular, but he's not quote unquote cool.
Yeah.
And he made 46 movies.
That's crazy.
I mean,
Right.
That's a
And
lot.
how many of those have you seen? How
None.
many are? I mean,
I've never seen an Elvis
No, I've
movie.
never seen
right.
Elvis
So
movie.
there's
Is it-
46 of them, and
is it
we're
Blue-
movie people. And
Is
Yeah.
it Blue Hawaii? That's the big one, right?
Viva Las
Viva
Vegas?
Las
Viva Las
Vegas.
with Anne Margaret.
What's
Jailhouse
Jailhouse Rock?
Yeah, like I mean, a lot of just song titles. Love
Yeah.
Me Tender.
Right.
Like it's
But yeah, I mean, as movie people, none of us have
because
seen
they're
them
not considered good movies.
They're not
Yeah.
right. So if you love Elvis, you're going to watch his movies. But as movie people, he never broke out into that. Oh, there's this great movie with Elvis.
Right.
It'd be interesting to see if he had done A Star Is Born.
What would
happens?
that have done?
What would that have
Yeah.
done? Like, is that the one? Is that the one that like?
I think Tom Parker knew too that he would lose his grasp if he became a big movie star. There would be other influence of Hollywood where he could not
Right.
keep him from.
Interesting.
Yeah, but
know-
it's a really good movie.
And I recommend seeing it on the big screen. Like,
Yeah.
it's definitely worth your time.
Baz Luhrmann's visuals, like I said, work really well for it.
Yeah.
Did not expect it. I thought this is going to be a mess, and somehow they told the story in a way they kept it interesting, kept it moving, and were very visually interesting to watch. They didn't overshadow
No.
the story or
Yeah, I
the
agree with that.
performances.
and I hope we get that 4-hour cut.
Yeah, I hope they do like a
the
director's cut
the
release
Baz
on-
Luhrmann cut.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
In black and white in 4x3.
Yeah,
Not
they
in
used to
black
just
and
call that director's cut.
Right.
They didn't have to call it the the name of the person.
So
It's
anyway,
not like he has any hubris or anything from the person that we're referring to.
yeah. So anyway, I guess that's it for this one. Let's go around the table and everyone can say where to find them.
This is Joe. You can follow me on the Twitter at JoeyButts, BUTTS21.
This is Kevin. Follow me on Twitter at KevinRBrackett and listen to the Games We Love podcast.
And this is Tom. You can follow me on Twitter at Roger Kubert or on Facebook at Facebook.com/Tom O'Keefe. You can find the show online, Facebook.com/Real Spoilers. While you're there, like the page, join the group. And of course, don't forget our Patreon, Patreon.com/Real Spoilers. So
there's a Superman, Brian Spath, friend of the show and friend of me.
Is that Movie Boyfriend?
Movie Boyfriend Brian
Okay.
Spath. We do a recast of Superman. We have a little.
okay.
He
It was
gives
a fun episode.
Yeah, it was fun.
I liked hearing about the Kevin Smith for his script, who he actually would have chosen.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So it's on there.
Yeah.
Let's listen to find out.
Yeah, check it out.
So anyway, that's it for this one. I forgot to pull a spoiler, so whoops.
Elvis dies.
So yeah. So thank you very much.
Get ready for a spoiler. Won't say it twice, 'cause we